Warning: if you are not into supply chain planning and do not like working with numbers and spreadsheets, then this podcast will feel very boring to you. But if you like these things, especially spreadsheets for planning, then there will be some great ChatGPT tips for you with aerial life example.
Is able to account for inventory moving from one location to another location, and from that location to another, like the whole movement of inventory, and it keeps track of all of that and makes sure that all the
so it does 80% of your work, but you still need to put that 20% human element. But it's still, the fact that it's doing, like earlier, before AI tools were available, we had to do 100% of the work. Now it's doing it's saving a lot of your time, but you still need to have that human element. Absolutely agreed.
Not to get too technical into the details, but I was very intelligent in how I developed this piece of code, combining two different queries into one and making it dynamic such that the final query was just depending on the prior query to get the information. Like I said initially, like this is where you need to be able to be conversant with the software and the code to be able to get through it. Because if, let's say, I had zero idea about how it works, I wouldn't have been able to overcome some of these problems. So it's suggested to me based on my code alone that I need to add another query that checks for when I get negative balances, right? Because bear in mind, this is an Excel setup. It won't stop you like the way your ERP system will stop you from trying to take more than what's in a location. It was smart enough to look at my code and tell me that we need to add that to it.
Hello and welcome to another podcast on my channel, Supply Chain Folks. And as you know, that one of the topics I talk a lot about in this channel is how the power of AI is shaping the world of supply chain and the skill sets around it. And recently, when I posted one of the clips from my podcast with Aileen Sandoval, where we talked about how to build skills for AI in supply chain, one of my followers posted a comment that he has actually built an inventory system in Excel using AI for MDAX queries. And he believes that the performance and the functionality of the tool he has built is more or less the same what an SAP module would give you. And I really got excited when I heard that. So I invited him to this podcast, and he was very kind enough to take the time out on his weekend to do this with us. So I would like to introduce Aaron Turkson to you guys. And Aaron is an experienced supply planning professional. He has got a wealth of experience in the area of supply planning. He has worked with some big companies like Unilever, and he has got his experience across Africa, and now he's working in Canada. And he's joining me from a very exciting place in Canada, which is Whitehorse, Yukon. So without further ado, let me welcome Aaron to the podcast. Hello, Aaron. How are you?
Hi, Jamil. I'm good. How's it going?
Very good, Aaron. And thanks a lot for contributing to my posts on LinkedIn and sharing your amazing tool that you have built, which I'm sure today the audience is going to take benefit from that whole thought process and how you have built it. But before we go there, Aaron, just give us a quick introduction about yourself. How did you get into supply chain, and what has been your journey, and what are you doing right now?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I would say my supply chain journey started I'm from Ghana originally. I started working in planning departments, initially doing import exports type of operations, and I got exposed to the planning like the other aspect, which is the material planning, supply planning, and I somehow found myself like getting the opportunities to be in these roles and develop myself. So I recently just completed my master's program here in Canada, and like after that I started a job here, and what brings me to Whitehorse all the way up north here in the Yukon, working with the one of the telcos up here. So it's a bit different from my planning experience. It's now more logistics based, but it's quite exciting to have a feel of another part of like the big supply chain field. So yeah, basically there's a little bit about myself, and yeah, happy to show what I came up with. Yeah.
Excellent. That's fantastic. And yeah, and then once you share your tool with us, I would love to also hear from you, like how are you really keeping yourself upskilled, and how you're blending the power of like some of these new AI tools with Excel or some of the other like standard tools we use in supply chain. So I would love to also learn about that. But let's go to the tool itself, Aaron. And before you start sharing your screen and we get into the tool itself, just tell us a little bit about like what is the purpose of the tool, what it does, and then we can dive into how you have built it.
Yeah, so the tool basically is like for inventory management in sense of warehouse storage, keeping track of inventory that's coming to, let's say, your warehouse or multiple warehouses. So what I have here is I have different locations where inventory is kept. It's able to account from inventory moving from one location to another location, and from that location to another, like the whole movement of inventory, and it keeps track of all of that and makes sure that all the I have some checks. I'll go through it when I present to make sure that it's all accurate. So yeah, I mean, basically, it's I feel like it's replicating something like what an SAP model would do, because you have different plants, you have different warehouses and stuff that inventory moves around, and yeah, this is what I try to achieve with this system. So yeah, just a simple inventory management system. So yeah.
Excellent. And one question out of just pure curiosity, right? Because this is, I mean, to be very honest, like this is also one of the challenges we face in our company as well, right? That tracking inventory across multiple warehouses, what's in transit and what's not, and all of that stuff. So tell me a little bit about like, is the tool pulling data from different sources, different systems? How does the data sourcing work?
So it's the tool at this base, and what I'll extrude to you is it's taking it from manual entries. So, for example, you have one person who's inputting, like it's like you're doing a transaction. So you see how in SAP you go in there, you're receiving inventory, you put in your PO number if you have a PO number and all of that stuff in, and you execute. I have a table for that. It's scalable to what you are seeing, where it could be pulling from different sources as well. So let's say multiple people could have different versions of the sheet. We could set it up to link it to every single warehouse location, and as everybody inputs in their data and information, it can be updated. It can be the locations and the inventory at the different locations could be also updated. So that is possible. But at this very base, what I showed today is all in one sheet. So you have the where you're putting, like, let's say, your transactions, and it's updating it as you move the inventory along to different places.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So let's dive into the tool itself. Let me just add your screen here. So over to you. You just walk us through how it's built.
Yeah. Okay. So I would start with this screen. So this is more like the validation, or like what I'll say.
Sorry, Aaron, can you just zoom in a little bit more so that people
Zoom
can
in, okay.
see this? Yeah. Thank you.
Is it okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. So I have it on another screen here so that so you see my head tilts up a bit. So this is more like somewhat like my master data screen, where I have the different warehouse locations. So you have warehouse 2, warehouse 1, plant A, warehouse 3, and all of that, and all of this stuff. And you have your customers as well. And I have this special location I call stock initial. I would explain that when I get to the full inventory view, but it's a special location because let's say every company or every warehouse will have some inventory, will be completely zero from the start, right? So this is like a one-time location where that I accounted for that inventory. Yeah, so this is like my master data for my locations. Then I have another table for the status of, let's say, that the transaction or the input you are putting in the system, whether it's in transit or it's delivered, because it takes time from point A to point B and so forth. So that's also accounted for here. And we come to the movement type. So as I doing a stock transfer order, which is more or less the movements between the plants, or you're doing a goods issue or a sale, which you're selling to a customer. And this movement type BI stands for beginning inventory. that ties back to what I was referring to in the initial stock. So it's more like a one-time kind of setup I have in place to account for initial inventory that the warehouses and plants will have. Then for scalability, I have this table here. So this is my, let's say my transactions or the data I'll be inputting for the year 2025. It doesn't have to be just the year 2025, but you understand that Excel has limitations up to about 1 million and something rows. We can have multiple rows as much as you want, but when it gets to that limit, you have to create a new table. And this setup here is to account for that limitation. So if I use up to I don't expect it to be used up to that 1 million in a very short time, but if you use up to 1 million, the limit of the Excel sheet, then we can add a new one here and move on and move forward. So this is for scalability reasons. Yeah. And let me come to where the data is actually inputted here. Let me zoom in again. You have the date of the transaction, you have your movement type here, you have a unique reference that's particular, let's say transactional row you're inputting will come with. We could put a formula to generate a unique reference so that you don't need to manually input this. But this, like I said, very, very rudimentary and basic, but so you can improve on that. Then you have the SKU or the code in some cases. You have your description in here, and you input the PO number, activity. This I just have as a miscellaneous rule. You don't need to really put in much there, but it can be repurposed for whatever you want it to be. You have your unit of measure, you have the quantity. So now there's an important piece, where it's coming from and where it's going to. And you see here I have some drop down. I've done the data validation here, so that if I'm, let's say for example, putting in warehouse 4, there's nothing like warehouse 4, it won't let me input that. I don't know if you are seeing it on the screen, but
yeah, I can.
You can see it won't let me input in the wrong warehouse. So if I know I want to add another warehouse location, I have to come into my master data screen and add the warehouse here.
Okay.
So maybe you can just test it out to just give you an idea of some of the controls we have here. So you see I have warehouse 4 here, and
now you can do it. Okay, got it.
So these are some of the checks and small tweaks that have been factored into the file to make sure that there's integrity in the data. So this covers it from the plant. Then you have the status, whether it's delivered or in transit, because you'd see here that we have the ship date and we have the arrival date, and we have so more or less you would put in your ship dates when it ships out, and this would be, let's say, in transit until it arrives there. This would remain like in transit, and then again, to these are also rooms of improvement. I could put an automated formula there that would account for it's changing on its own without any human input, right? These are some of the benefits and stuff of AI. Like it can improve whatever you create. So this is at this very base. So this is pretty much it for the data entry aspect of the tool, and all of it accumulates into the inventory view here. Let me zoom in again. So from all the transactions that we saw from this previous page, like all of this stock that you see here, and as I mentioned, sorry to go back a bit, but I mentioned to you I needed to create a special location called stock initial, which is more or less the starting inventory for all the different plants per SKU. So that is why I have all of these transactions in place. Then from let me see. Yeah, so this is the beginning inventory, the stock initial. So from here onwards, from row 30 onwards, I have the STOs and sales and all of that stuff. So the inventory is moving around and it's being deducted from one location, added to another location, moved to another location, sold. Like all of that movements happen here.
And goods issue is basically when the product is getting produced. So like STO is a transfer order between two warehouses, I'm assuming. And goods issue is that when the production happens, or like just to understand the terminology.
Yeah. So the logic I use for this is the STOs are for movements between plants and warehouse. So if you're moving from one plant to a warehouse, it's an STO. So I'm treating the plants as somewhat of a storage location as well.
Oh, okay, okay, got
And
it.
yeah, if you're moving it to a warehouse, it's like an STO movement. Now the goods issue, I the logic here is the goods issue are sales. It's
Oh,
being
okay, okay,
issued
that
to,
sails out. Got it. Okay,
yeah,
clear.
goes out of the inventory. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I use it. So I'm using some of the SAP terminologies we are familiar with. I'm not sure if you are familiar with SAP, but like,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that. Yes.
Just to clarify, yeah. So it's So goods STO is movement in the plant and in the warehouse movements. GIs are sales to the customer. Yeah. So I think I just wanted to like point that out again. So that's why the reason we have this the initial stock location, then we have the movements down from row 30. So we come to the inventory view. So with the inventory view, I have two tables. I'll start with the table on the left. So the table on the left being powered from the queries that I work with the AI ChatGPT to help me develop is done all the additions and subtractions from the different plants and their warehouses, and we have our total live inventory view per location. So you see it on a per SKU level um, via the varying plants that are there. So you have plants A, plants B, warehouse one, warehouse two, warehouse three, and you have the stock that you would see in all these locations. So let me pick out one stock because it's a pivot table, like it's
Mhm.
a pivot table. Just to I forgot to add that it's a pivot table that is doing the background calculation to like give us our total inventory. But I can pick out one SKU and we see the transactions that went to it. So when you double click, you see the various movements that happen to give you that total amount, right?
Okay,
So
interesting.
you see here that we had our initial stock. That's a BI. Let me zoom. I think it's a bit. Yeah. Remember, I mentioned the initial stock that we had. It
Mhm.
was 27. So that was the amount of this queue that went into plant B. That was the initial stock. Then we had two STO movements that left that particular plant. So we had 22 leaving the plant and 44 leaving the plant for this SKU 125, right? So I just to check to be sure that we're on the same page. So this amounts to 161. I think we
Mhm.
should have
That's
one.
what you should see on that.
Yeah, that's what you see. So
Yeah.
you see you have the 161 here. Yeah.
Mhm.
So just to validate the information we are looking at, we is being accurate in calculating what led to you having 161 of SKU 125 under the plant.
Right.
Yeah. So this is
And,
the
and
basic.
and how is it capturing the inventory which might be in transit, right? So you ship, let's say, something from
Mm.
on a STO from one plant to the other. Is this table also showing what's in the pipeline, or is it only showing on ground stock?
Yeah. So that's let me add it to this file. Let me. I wanted to also show that as well. So this on the status. I would add the status to my filter. Where is the status? Yeah, I have the status here. Yeah. So currently we are seeing everything is more or less delivered, right?
Mhm.
But we could change. Let's say we could change one of these transactions to in transit, right?
Mhm.
So I'll run this in transit. I would come back into my inventory view. And there's another thing with Power Query and the queries that I use. You have to always refresh your
Yeah,
your
of
your
course. Yeah.
your data. Otherwise, you don't see the live. So now we would see if we want to have a view of what is in transit, we could filter it out there, and you would see that SKU 231 is in transit to plant. No, is leaving plant B
Mm-hmm.
and is on its way to uh, warehouse.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Right.
you have a view of that. So if you wanted to see all your in transit view, stock movement, you just filter this out. You see everything. But the good thing is that it doesn't affect what is delivered, because what is delivered has actually happened. Left one
Yes.
warehouse location and landed onto the next where it's destined for. So it's able to separate these two things.
Excellent, excellent. So far, what you have shown us, Aaron, is like really like the core of Power Query, right? So how you have
Yeah.
built this, right? Now, can you just show us a little bit more about how you use ChatGPT to facilitate some of this work?
Okay, let me know if we can see it
Yep,
now.
it came up. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll just go through some of the conversations with I had with ChatGPT
Mm-hmm.
to come up with this stuff. So I started with telling them, like, I always start with like an objective of why I'm having the conversation. So you see here, I want to work with you. We're finding a power query I created. I'm referencing to logic I got from you, and not sure if you remember. And I also put in there I don't want it to use a higher level of GPT because I'm using the free version.
Yes.
Yeah, when you when you uses a chat GPT the higher level, it sort of casts out in the middle. So like I was very specific to let it keep to the base model that I think was very sufficient for what I wanted to use it for. So I sent this message to ChatGPT. It said it doesn't remember, which was a good thing for me. And I was happy it said it couldn't remember because I'll take us through how I modeled, I sort of communicated what I had and how where I wanted to go with it. So it's asked me to share my query, which was just perfect. So I said I have three queries that I'll share the code for each. So I
Mm-hmm.
took the query code. I had three queries that I was working with. I had a master table query that I had. I shared that I shared that code with ChatGPT, and this is a beauty of it because M is Power Query uses the M code, which is slightly different from DAX. You get to see the actual raw coding behind the query that goes into like transforming the data. So it's you're able to really communicate well with the AI to let it picture well what you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
achieve. So that's what we did here. I put in the three different codes and three different query codes in there, the master table query. So I had the master table to, master table from, and I had a master table query without any funny name with it. Yeah. So these are the three codes I put there. So the tool just responded. I mean, GPT just came back saying, "Okay, I see the pattern there. This is what I've done, and this what's the code. How he understands the code, right? Just going through it quickly to show you the conversation, but it's it only told me how what he understands from my code, um, and it's something interesting happened there when I shared it initially. So what I even seen from my file is a refined version of my conversation here because it told me I had repeated code, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it said that it could do it better by reducing the queries to one parameterized function or whatever. From just looking at the code that you shared with it. And it said that if I wanted, we could refactor this code into just two queries. So I had three queries to get to where I wanted to go to. Instead, we could do it in two. Instead, if I want, we could just do it into two queries. I said, I think I came back here and I said, okay. But I also gave it another data point. So I copied my row columns, right? Remember the where we input the transactions for the movements and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very important piece of it. So I copied that and I shared it with ChatGPT. So it now understands what the query is doing. It also understands the source data table or the structure of the source data that is going to be worked with. And that's also very important to add there. So given this both of this information to ChatGPT, it has a whole idea of the entire program we have in the query program we have in Excel, and the conversation gets more, let's say, interactive and more refined in what you want to do. So I sent that information to ChatGPT. It's got it and broke it down perfectly how it is in my Excel file.
Mhm.
Then it gave me a couple of steps of what we can do to improve the queries that we have. And that's why I've been asked there. So you can basically improve what I've done. And he said, yes, you can definitely improve what we have done without changing the logic you have already built, which is just beautiful, right? So he gave me, I said, okay, let's try and see what you want to do. So this is where ChatGPT comes in with a code. It created this code for me based on all the information that we have had prior, giving it what my query code was, telling it the structure of my table. Now comes to the output from ChatGPT.
So it has
So
processed all our conversation, even
yes,
all
yes,
our parameters, and now it's giving you a customized code for your. So
customized code.
you can literally copy this and paste
Copy,
it.
yes, paste it
Wow,
here. Yeah,
amazing.
that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So perfect. It created this master table code for me. I just took it out and put it into my Empower query. And most often than not, so I'll just add a bit here. Most often than not, the code works perfect, but you have some errors and bugs that you have to kind of figure out.
Right.
And I believe that's where you as a person can't 100% depend on AI, because you have to be confident with the query or the query code in order to find where the problems are or find what is causing the error or it not being able to run. So that's why I believe, and I've been looking at your conversation you had previously on the AI. That's where like the human aspect comes in, because
Absolutely.
it enables you to be able to do some of these things, but you yourself need to have an idea of how like the software works or the code works, and to be able to like to guide it to where you want it to go. So like that's really, I guess I'll say that this is an important piece in the evolution of AI, and especially not just for supply chain, just like for everybody else, because you need to be. I don't think where it is today, personally, is at a level where you can 100% depend on it. It's still very powerful, but it needs the guidance. So
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, and that's so true, Aaron, right? Because that's also my experience. I mean, I don't write this level of code that you are writing on Excel, which is fantastic. But even like I use AI all the time for content creation and all of that. So it does 80% of your work, but you still need to
exactly,
put
yeah,
that 20% human
20%,
element.
yeah,
But it's still, the fact that it's doing like earlier before AI tools were available, we had to do 100% of the work. Now
yeah,
it's doing like, so
exactly,
it's saving a lot of your time, but
time,
you
yeah,
still need to have that human element. Absolutely. Agreed.
yeah, yeah. So it more or less gave me, so like, yeah, I was saying, it more or less gave me the code that I could create. And so it was two pieces of code, two queries here. It created one query here and another query here, and it combined it in a certain way. So not to get too technical into the details, but it was very intelligent in how I developed this piece of code, combining two different queries into one and making it dynamic such that the final query was just depending on the prior query to get the information.
Got
So
it.
I don't know if I'm explaining as well, but like
So
it's like,
basically, you're saying it optimized the query
yeah,
quite smartly. So what you thought were two separate queries, it actually collapsed
yeah,
it into one. So made the code very efficient, basically.
yeah. So maybe to give a basic example, right? You had two Excel formulas, and it's instead of you having two Excel formulas, let's say it combined it into one.
Got it.
That's the long and short of it. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And we
you
have,
don't need to have.
there are so many examples I can think of. I remember I used when back in like early days, I used to write like a V lookup, H lookup
Yeah,
combination formula, but then
combination,
like
yeah,
Excel brought in new formulas where you don't need it to
yeah,
write that long of a like
that long,
I
yeah.
remember writing like 7-line formulas in Excel at one point in time.
Wow.
Now you can do it with like a couple of lines, but now this
Yeah,
is like the next level. You don't
yeah,
even need to write those couple of lines. You can use ChatGPT to do it for you,
yeah.
and then you just refine and make sure that your parameters are customized, and that's it.
Customized, yeah, yeah,
So you just copied this code and pasted it on Power Query, Aaron.
yeah. So I copied it and put it on a Power Query. And also to also point out, it was kind of new to me the technique is used to create this query, right? So you can see here I asked it, what do you enter for the parameter? It was a whole different view. I didn't get what it was saying. Then it breaks it down to me to tell me what exactly it's trying to achieve, right? Yeah, so this is where I talk about being confident of with the code, right? So I get this error, and normally I put in the errors into ChatGPT to tell it that I'm getting
Mhm.
this specific error. Like, what does it mean? Sometimes I'm not able to figure out why. So I would go back and take a snapshot of it or take a text of it and tell it and tell ChatGPT. Then it will explain to me why what the error is and give me some solutions, right? It gives me a quick fix. I tried a quick fix, it still doesn't work. So what I then do is I get my own fix and
Mhm.
put it in there. And I come back and tell her that, hey, what you told me didn't work, but this is what I did. So it was a naming problem. Like, you can't have the same exact name with your work in Excel. You can't have the exact name in your worksheets, right? If you have worksheet A, you also can't have another worksheet A in it. So that was the error that I was getting. But I was on a query level. It was saying I was replicating, reusing the same name twice where I
Mhm.
shouldn't be. So I just added a one, the
Mhm.
number one to the where I was getting the error from, more or less. And I
Right.
came back and told that like this is what I did and it worked. And it's what did it say? It said something interesting. I just added a number one. It said that works too. Yeah. And your function query is called function master table one, and as long as you have this blah blah blah. So it sort of solved the problem. And like I said initially, like this is where you need to be able to be conversant with the software
Mhm.
and the code to be able to get through it. Because if let's say I had zero idea about how it works, I wouldn't have been able to overcome some of these problems. So yeah, so this is basically the not to go through the entire conversation, but this is basically how I communicate with the ChatGPT to achieve what I want to do with my code, right?
Excellent.
And sometimes it will give me suggestions. So there was one last piece in the Excel file I didn't show. It's suggested to me based on my code alone that I need to add another query that checks for when I get negative balances, right? Because bear in mind, this is an Excel setup. It won't stop you like the way your ERP system will stop you from trying to take more than what's in a location. But with this, with Excel, there's nothing like some internal tool that will stop that. Maybe not that I know of yet, but it was smart enough to look at my code and tell me that we need to add that to it.
Mm.
So it's you would see that there's another part of it I didn't show, but maybe I'll get there a bit later. But it's recommended a whole new idea, a whole new query to check for these things, right?
Okay.
And it helped me develop that query as well in inputs in it. So this is how powerful it can become. It can
So
be,
this is really becoming your coding assistant, right? It's like giving you everything,
yeah,
and you just need to know the business problem you are solving.
solving, yeah,
So, and in this case, you showed us a very good like live example where you were trying to create this inventory visibility system, let's call it,
yeah,
or set of spreadsheets, and data is coming from different sources. Some of the data is manually entered, but
yeah.
using this query, you have made it smart enough that it's basically wiring all the data properly.
And you see the stock initial here, just to point it out to you, it's all negative because that's where the starting point of the inventory. But I could hide it here or I could hide it on the
Mhm.
query level, but just to show you what it looks like. So we are back to seeing the view per plant and the integrity check is here. So it's a two-way, there are two separate queries, but they all achieve the same thing. So
Mm.
this is actually what I came up with to check if there will be negative balances. And that's, to be honest, that was originally on ChatGPT's suggestion. In my second conversation, in my conversation with ChatGPT, I gave it this particular code that I had done, and they said we could do it better. So just to go back to the point of what I was saying about it checking for negative balances, it improved on itself more or less. This was what it gave me the first time that I ran through this system, and going through it again with ChatGPT said, okay, actually we can do it better than this. So let's do a live example, right? I would want to create a negative stock balance for a particular plant. So let's see this one like this. I'll just put some crazy number there. I know it won't have that amount. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, so that's SKU A64 for plant A. I'm taking 600 out. I know definitely doesn't have that amount in there, and I'm moving it to warehouse too, right? So I'll run the query again, and let's see. You should see a negative balance for one. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. 864. It's negative.
It's showing a negative, yeah. So it pops out right at you. Now, my data integrity check also tell me that I have negative stock on plant A, which is where we did the change on, right? What's this to do? So let's go through. So let me click it to tell me what happened. So to tell me that this particular SKU on plant A has negative minus 366. This just tells me that I have a negative balance on the plant. It doesn't tell me when that happened, right? And the second query that ChatGPT suggested was showing me when exactly I made a mistake.
Wow. Okay. Show us that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So I'll come in. Oh, I already loaded. I didn't want it to load automatically, but let me clear it out here. So this table is more or less like a replication of all our transactions. So every single time we put in information in our main, like the main sheet, it does a check here. Every single one is, you can see that every single one is okay apart from the one, right? This negative stock. So if I just filter out here for negative stock, I'll see that is the plant A that we are referring to, right?
Got it.
Yeah. So this is the line I
need. Somebody messes around with the data, you can easily go and
go back and find. Yeah.
So this could be a great tool for like inventory reconciliation as well, right? When you're reconciling different systems, which is another common industry problem, right? So
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So to point out exactly where you made a mistake, and you know the reference. So this will just show you that this particular line you put in there, it's wrong. So you could go and take the reference number and coming back here. Yeah. So this was where we made a change, if you remember. It was 600, yeah. So you have a whole setup to kind of go back and find where you made mistakes in terms of like the movements around and figure it out. Otherwise, you'd have to now go through a tall list of transactions and do some small analysis, see where the mistakes coming from. But with this, it's all more or less automated. So yeah.
Excellent. Oh, this is fantastic. So just maybe thanks again for sharing this, Aaron. And for the benefit of the audience, if someone wants to really in the supply chain space, wants to like blend this AI tools with the existing tools, how did you have the initiative to learn this? Was it just your inquisitiveness? You were trying to find out stuff on ChatGPT? Or is there any other route you would recommend to people who are watching this podcast?
Well, personally, I got into using AI like I think maybe 2 years ago, give or take, and I was using it for very rudimentary things, like maybe, for example, a very long text you want to summarize and that basic stuff, and it just occurred to me like, okay, if they say you can ask ChatGPT literally anything, and I started playing around, inputting, like asking it like opinions. Then it got to actual Excel problems. I saw it go solve my Excel problems. Like the formulas that you're seeing, you had like 3 or 4 back in the past. I said, this is my formula. How can we make it better? It will give me something. And I'm like, okay. So it's more of like built on experiences I've had with the tool, and I keep pushing it to see how far I can go with its usefulness. And like what we just went through and the conversation with ChatGPT, it really boils down to how well you can communicate what you have and what you want to achieve. So, for example, I wanted to build an inventory management tool. I had something ongoing from my knowledge of Power Query. And I'll say this, like, it understands code best. If you give these tools like programming code, it's not just M or DAX, C++, or whatever code you want to use. It understands it very, very well. So I would suggest, if you're using Excel, you have some problem you want to optimize, copy the code and put it in. Tell it that these are the columns in my table that I'm working with, and this the formula I have, but this is what I want to do. That'll be like an example of how to use it in your everyday supply chain life. If you want to create a tool like this, you need to get a bit confident with the code a bit. You don't need to be an expert. I'm not an expert in the DAX or M, but I've used it well enough to be able to understand how the code works and how it flows. Because I'll say that a lot of the code language is very similar to basic English. You're able to tell, summarize, filter. You see all of those small codes inside these languages that you can make sense of, right? And yeah, so as much as you're dependent on it, when you get the outputs, learn what it's trying to do. Try and understand the logic behind what you get back from the AI, because that's the only way you can guide it to improve onto what you want to like achieve. So yeah.
So build the basic. I would say, what is the right word? I'm just skipping my mind. You should be basically like understand the fundamentals of the coding language, so that then you can use AI to your advantage. And then AI does like 80% of the work, and then you just refine it and then fix it. Last question, Aaron, is, I mean, Microsoft is trying to do a lot of this with Copilot as well, right? But I've tried it once. Maybe I've not tried enough. Like, I was not very impressed. Or maybe, they still need to improve the code itself, because what you are doing is you're taking you're doing all the AI work in ChatGPT, or then bring it back to Excel. Any perspective on, because maybe in the next couple of years, you'll be able to do it within the Excel environment itself using Copilot as well. So any perspective on that?
Yeah, I think it would. I hope that it does get to that level of integration between the AI, like Copilots, of course, it's Microsoft and Excel and their whole suite of programs. Especially you have Power BI too there. That's also quite powerful. But my only concern with that direction is that space of the human intelligence playing into it, because it can only be as useful as what you want it to be, right? And I'm just interested to see how that integration will happen, how it will be set up in such a way that you can still guide the AI to achieving what you want it to do, not basically do what it thinks is best. Because it's not necessarily what the AI comes out with that is the most like refined or best output of what you want to achieve, right? You as like we have different professions. Like the finance person might look at this and want to work it in such a way that it suits them, right? And a supply chain person will look at it in such a way that wants to develop it to look out for these parameters or these tools and come up with an output that's useful information for me. So I do hope that there's that allowance for the human intelligence aspect of it. And hopefully, I would want it to get to that level of integration. So yeah, hoping that we get there in the next couple of years, especially with Copilot, because Microsoft Office is one of the most used softwares and organizations too. So it's quite important that you get it right. And I think ChatGPT is integrated into Copilot in some funny way.
Yeah, so of course they are using their own LLM. I mean, I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great. Well, I mean, this was very educational personally for me. and very useful. And I think I really loved the part where you just showed how you are using AI to optimize the code for your Power Queries, and then putting it in the context of a real life supply chain example is always very powerful. Thanks a lot for your time again. Thanks a lot for taking the time on a weekend to do this. So really appreciate your willingness to come and show us the tool, and hopefully we'll stay in touch. And as you do more of this fantastic stuff with AI, I may invite you once more to the podcast another time.
No worries. Yeah. Thank you for having me too, Jamil. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.